Hi, this is Reverend Dr. Nadine Rosechild-Sullivan, and I'm coming to you with a really important text that makes the argument that it is contraception, the ability to control when and if one has a child or children, that has made it so that first world women have been able to enter into education and have been able to enter into careers of choice, at least some of us, in the recognition that many of us still work jobs that we do not enjoy or get any kind of self-fulfillment from, that many of us don't have careers but are simply underpaid, that many Americans and in other, I guess in other first world countries, do not make a living wage and have to work multiple jobs in order to try to be able to take care of themselves and or their children. In light of all of that, whatever progress has been made in regard to the actual liberation of women across my lifespan, from being the daughter of a woman who gave birth to 13 children in 14 and a half years' time, from being that in that space and from that space in which women did not have access to birth control, in which there was no hormonal birth control, and we're often even talking about other means of preventing conception of children. In some states, it was a felony in the United States to even share, for even a doctor or a nurse to share contraceptive or birth control information of any kind, even to share with you about timing, when and if to have sex. All of that was a felony in certain states. And so it took actually a US Supreme Court ruling. It took the creation of hormonal birth control, which did not happen until 1960. And then it took a US Supreme Court ruling, which if I remember correctly was 1965-ish, to make it so that married women could have access to birth control. Non-married women began to have access to the hormones that are used for birth control on the grounds of PMS, but they wouldn't at some point prescribe them to married women. And it took a Supreme Court ruling to make it so that every doctor in every state of the United States had the legal permission to prescribe hormonal birth control to married women, and to do so on the grounds of being able to space and number children. Therefore, much of this story is about cisgendered women. This is not about the struggles of transgender women, which I don't fully recognize because I don't live them, but which I fully respect. And so, but this is not that. This is a story about those who have the plumbing to be able to conceive against their will or with their will, in or out of marriage, in multiple situations, and about the ways in which those who have the plumbing to be the carrier and bearer of children have had their lives circumscribed by the inability to space or number children, or to choose not to have any at all. How women in the third world or in developing countries are still in many places around the globe, or in many religious settings within the United States, denied access to contraception, and where any person with a uterus and ova is denied the end of a reproductively fertile time period and whatever, is denied the ability to choose, denied access to whatever medical technology or whatever knowledge of barrier methods and knowledge of timing is available. Wherever a person is in that position who happens to have a uterus and ova, that person, generally speaking, overwhelmingly cisgendered women, that person is in a position where they are not in control of their own life choices, life trajectory, life goals. And in the era before women had access to birth control, to relatively reliable birth control, we were en masse denied access to education, denied access to the professions, fired upon marriage, fired upon pregnancy. As I exited high school, the help wanted ads were listed in sex segregated manner that said help wanted male and help wanted female. And believe me, never the twain did meet. So while I fully respect and understand as much as is possible the ongoing, evolving conversation about gender identity and about those who are gender nonconforming and gender queer and gender non-binary and transgender, and I respect that, this book, this space is about the overwhelming discussion of what contraception has meant to cisgendered women or cisgender women. And I'm going to read this little note that is on the front page. So in the title, the word women has an asterisk, and there is on the title page a note with that asterisk. And I just want to read that and put this into each of these videos because no offense is meant to anyone. I struggled with the language. I wrote a draft that included persons with ovas, persons with sperm, all the way through. It was very, very cumbersome. And this is about cisgender women overwhelmingly, though it also includes those who may identify as trans or gender non-binary, but still have the plumbing to be impregnated either by choice or against their will. And so it does relate in that way, but I am asking for your good grace in this steadily evolving conversation and for a space for the recognition that 1/3 of cisgender women and girls around the globe are beaten, raped, incested, held in bondage of various kinds, considered to be owned by their fathers until they're owned by their husbands, that there is still this space that has to do with who impregnates and who gets impregnated and carries to term, gives birth, and then is socially mandated to have the role of nurturing and rearing. This really matters in the overwhelming populace. This matters in every nation, in every culture, in every clime, in every kind of space through all of human history, now and moving forward. And so cisgender women are not without discrimination. And the discrimination that faces cisgender women is often based in reproduction and the ability to choose or not, the inability to choose when and if to have children. Even if we were talking about child marriage, which we could talk about in the United States, so much of it has to do with who does or doesn't get pregnant by whom and when, and what access they did or didn't have to contraception and or early termination of the product of conception. So the asterisk says this: the ability to control when or if one bears a child has been an absolute precondition of the liberation of largely cisgender women and girls from the cloister of the home, which, believe me, is where we lived when we didn't have access to birth control. We were cloistered in homes, reared to choose a husband and live a life inside, to move from father's house to husband's house, the cloister of the home, to a place in the public sphere. There, where you see women today, women were not 40 and 50 years ago. Women were not before 1965, largely. In this discussion, there is no intent to misgender any individual or group. No disrespect is directed toward any individual or group, no matter how they identify. Neither is any disrespect meant toward those who, for any reason, are not reproductively fertile. It should be noted that the author recognizes that language is steadily evolving and frequently unwieldy. However, as reproductive fertility of the gestational kind is at the heart of this discussion is and must be based in reproductive biology. By biological parameters, this discussion must of necessity be both limited to and inclusive of those who are reproductively able to conceive and gestate biological offspring. The author recognizes trans women as women. By extension, without malice, with no disrespect to the truths of gender identity, as a discussion of reproduction is not about identity, but about plumbing. For the purposes of this discussion, the terms woman, women, girl, girls, and female, females will be understood to be inclusive of persons with a viable uterus and ova, including adolescents, pubescent cisgender girls and transgender boys, reproductively able adults, premenopausal cisgender women and some trans men, and reproductively aged gender non-binary and some intersex people with a viable uterus and ova who are thus able to be impregnated with or against their wills. Also, for purposes of this discussion, the terms man, men, boy, boys, and male, males will be understood to be inclusive of those with sperm-producing testicles, including adolescents, pubescent cisgender boys and transgender girls, adults, cisgender men, and some transgender women, and reproductive age, gender non-binary, and some intersex people who are capable of impregnating a person with a uterus and ova. Again, this author respects gender identity and has struggled with the present limitations of language in regard to this work. I beg your forgiveness if I have not met your mark. Still, this book is not about gender identity. Rather, this book focuses on the personal as political, life-complicating factor of pregnancy for any person of any identity with a womb capable of planned or unplanned, desired or undesired, controlled or uncontrolled gestation. Thank you for your grace and mercy. Thank you for your understanding as I and you, as we continue to wrestle our way forward with our ever-growing understanding of gender identity. I thank you for the space to talk about what it is for persons with a uterus to have control of or not have control of their reproduction.